Where did all the good skilled workers go? That's a great question, and we're gonna try and answer it in this video. Because look, if it seems like it's harder than ever to hire for your trades or construction business, you're not alone. Now, before we dive in, if there's a part of this skilled labor shortage story that we're missing, or if you've got a different take on it altogether, we would love to hear that in the comments. Okay, so here's where I want to start. The best way to frame your thinking on this is to first understand that the talent market functions like any other market. There are demand forces and supply forces, a price that moves up and down as those two forces shift, and equilibrium points that get found and then disrupted and then found again. If you kind of go back to microeconomics 101, a lot of this is going to feel very familiar. So with that said, the first thing you got to understand is supply is down. Let's talk about some demographics. The biggest generation in history, the baby boomers, or just boomers as they're lovingly known now, are getting up there in age, frankly, and that's having a massive impact on our labor pool. It's estimated that 4.1 million people in the US had their 65th birthday in 2024, whereas in 1990, just to compare, only 2.1 million people turned 65. Up here in Canada, nearly 20% of our population is over the age of 65 versus 1990, only 12% of our population was over the age of 65. Those stats should paint a pretty stark picture for you. This so-called silver tsunami is coming in hot and wreaking havoc across every industry. It's very simple math, right? A ton of people are aging out of the workforce, and there are not enough fresh young people coming into the workforce. This is not a kids are lazy issue as much as it is a there aren't enough kids issue. And unless the upcoming Generation Z and Gen Alpha begin having 5 or 6 kids at a time, which I highly doubt, this downtrend in the availability of human beings is unlikely to change. So we're left with a large number of vacant job postings and no one around to fill them. There's another issue though that plagues the workforce, especially in the contracting industry, because trades and construction are hard. This ain't no cushy desk job, and aging bodies just can't sustain that kind of physical work, which in many cases, sadly, pushes them into retirement earlier than it otherwise would. So when you're wondering where all the good workers went, you can't ignore the demographics. Here's another piece of the puzzle though. The removal of shop classes from our high schools. Check this out. Between the late 80s and 2000s, school funding became increasingly reliant on standardized test scores, which meant schools were kind of indirectly incentivized to cut non-academic classes in favor of getting kids ready to score well in more academic areas. So as a result, the number of credits that students took in trades or machine shop or automotive or career tech education programs in general plummeted. So our education system basically defunded shop classes and teachers and programs, so stupid it's unbelievable, and started pushing young people towards college and university degrees and away from the trades. And for many, many people, that turned out to be really bad advice. Because look, the colleges and universities have been overproducing these degrees to the point where they're kind of losing their value. And unlike skilled trades, there is a way higher supply of underskilled bachelor's degree graduates than there is demand for them. Just go and ask your average psych or sociology or history grad how they're faring on the job market right now. Yikes. Now, unfortunately for contractors, this means that there are a ton of people out there who may have made fantastic workers in your business, currently working at Starbucks, or in some cases not working at all with no real sense of direction. However, and this is really interesting, the tide might be changing on this. A recent article from Forbes suggests that Gen Z's interest in the trades has been piqued. I wonder why. Gen Z has been deemed the tool belt generation for its open-mindedness in embracing the trades over the traditional college pipeline. Data from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center shows the number of students enrolled in vocational-focused community colleges increased 16% from 2022 to 2023. I like it. Something to keep an eye on for sure. Here's another factor: bizarre economic circumstances. On top of everything else we just covered, we've had some wonky economics over the last 2 decades that have caused major shifts in the blue-collar labor market. When the housing bubble popped in 2008, we saw a 70% decrease in new construction starts in the year that followed. That translated to a job loss of over 1.5 million people in the construction industry. Many of those people moved on to other sectors, some of them retired, and there were tons that just never returned. Now, over the decade that followed, from roughly 2010 to 2020, you can see it on this graph, the construction industry slowly but surely built its workforce back, which was great. But then, just as we started to see healthier numbers, pre-2008 numbers, a little thing called COVID hit and caused another loss of about 238,000 people. Now, as you'll remember, construction was deemed an essential service early on in the pandemic, and people did get back to work relatively quickly. But if you're trying to understand where all the good workers went, you have to factor in some of these big economic shocks to the system. The allure of hybrid or remote work also plays a role in this. So the pandemic resulted in a wave of job loss and caused people to transition out of construction careers, but it also led to the rise of the remote or hybrid worker. Check this out. The number of Americans working from home tripled from 5.7% to 17.9% between 2019 and 2021. And by 2025, that number is expected to go up to 22%. I don't know. We'll see. With more and more people in remote or hybrid roles also comes the glorification of work from home jobs and work from home culture on social media. I don't know if you've been on LinkedIn lately, but people seem to think that working from home is like a human right all of a sudden. It's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, young people are more and more enamored with the idea of remote work, and that means they are not envisioning themselves in trades and construction careers because they can't be done from home. Boo-hoo. However, this also might be correcting, as a ton of employers are, understandably, asking their employees to put some actual clothes on, ditch the pajamas, and come back to work like a grown-up, or pretend to go work somewhere else. Furthermore, there are tons in this laptop class who are becoming increasingly disenfranchised by the isolation, Zoom fatigue, and lack of culture or community associated with remote work. I'm going to go on a limb and say it here, guys. Remote work is overrated. Now, the last factor impacting supply that I want to talk about is simply that contractors suck at brand building. There, I said it. Contractors and blue-collar businesses have done a poor job making their companies look appealing to work for. Building an employer brand is important not only for you to recruit top talent, but also to show society in general how rewarding a career in the trades can be. Construction and trades are cool, dude. Do a better job showcasing that and watch the talent that you need roll in. Compared to white collar industry, blue collar employers just haven't invested the time into this to the same extent. All right, so that covers the supply side of the graph. Let's talk about demand. Demand is up. Let's talk about the housing shortage. The housing shortage across North America has drastically increased the demand for construction and therefore construction workers. While interest rates have gone up a bit in the last 2 years, and people love to complain about this, don't forget about the 10-year period before that of near zero interest rates, aka the ZIRP era. So the need for housing plus low rates meant that between 2010 and 2022, a lot of construction happened and a lot of skilled labor was gobbled up and absorbed by a lot of construction companies. Unprecedented stimulus. A very quick point on this one. In addition to low rates, our governments are obsessed with printing money to stimulate the economy, creating even more demand forces for skilled labor. The COVID boom. It turns out when people start spending all their time at home because they can't travel or do anything else, they start spending more money on their homes too. So the COVID boom, as we call it, has truthfully all but concluded, but for many contractors, its effect on the skilled labor market are still felt. And what happens when the demand for a very small supply of workers skyrockets? Unfortunately, your best crews start to think, hey, maybe I can go get paid more for a competitor. The good news. This might all sound pretty bleak up to this point. It's like, where is this going? Okay, here's where it's going. I am convinced that blue collar work is making a comeback, and that means contractors have a huge opportunity to refresh the recruiting strategy to meet the needs of a fresh generation of laborers. We just recently had Ken Rusk, the author of Blue Collar Cash, on our podcast, and he pointed out that 65% of blue collar workers report being very happy in their lives, while only 35% of white collar workers say the same. There's so much tangible meaning in what you guys do as contractors, building things, seeing the impact of your labor. This gives people a sense of purpose that they're just not getting sitting at home in their home office, typing endlessly on a laptop for people that they've never even met. All this to say, if you're having trouble finding people with industry experience to join your team, why don't you try looking for people who are maybe feeling a little lost in their career right now? We have a tool to help you with this. If you're looking to get clear on who it is you want to attract to your team, we have an ideal candidate profile and job posting template that we've made specifically for contractors like you, and you can use it using the link in our description below. Look, hiring good people as a contractor has never been harder. That's true. High demand and low supply have pushed up the price. That's also true. Decades of economic and cultural changes you had no control over have created a world where job hopping is the norm and steady, loyal employees are a rarer breed than they were before. That's true. The tough to swallow pill here is that you just have to get over it. The talent market, like any other market, changes, and this one has. That's why we've made all this content on how to hire better. So please check it out and give the stuff that makes sense to you a try. If you approach it with the right mindset and implement any of the hiring systems and strategies linked below, you'd be surprised how many great people you're able to find. Don't throw in the towel. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Double down on your strategy and your systems. Get creative. Figure out who you're looking for and go get them. Lastly, if you need help, check us out. We're Breakthrough Academy. We systemize contracting businesses for growth just like yours so that you can build a killer team and have way more fun doing it.